Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. We are standing at a pivotal moment in financial history, a moment that demands awareness, courage, and decisive action. The choices we make with our money today will shape not only our personal futures, but the very stability of the middle class. In 2026, idle cash is not safe. To sit on money without direction, without investment, is not prudence, it is slow destruction. Inflation, market volatility, and unseen global shifts are quietly eroding purchasing power day by day, month by month. The middle class, historically the backbone of economic stability, cannot afford complacency. Our focus today is clear, understanding why cash stagnation is dangerous, exploring the forces driving this quiet erosion, and taking practical steps to secure and grow wealth in an unpredictable world. Part 20, Understanding the Threat. Let's begin with a simple truth. Money loses value over time if it sits idle. Inflation is the silent thief. $100 today may feel solid, but by the end of the year or within a few years, its real purchasing power declines. In 2026, global economic pressures, rising government debt, and technological disruption accelerate this effect. Consider this: a bank account yielding 5% in interest against inflation of 4% effectively loses 5% of its value every year. This is not a hypothetical, this is reality. For families saving for education, retirement, or a home, the impact compounds over decades. The middle class cannot rely on outdated financial strategies. But the problem isn't just inflation, it's opportunity cost. Every dollar that sits idle is a dollar that could have been working. Whether in equities, bonds, small businesses, or emerging technologies, money has the potential to grow. To ignore this potential is to surrender it to time, inefficiency, and the rising cost of living. Part 3, the middle class at risk. The middle class, long considered the engine of economic growth, faces unique challenges. Wages have stagnated in many regions while costs rise. Traditional safe havens, savings accounts, CDs offer diminishing returns. Meanwhile, wealth accumulation is increasingly tied to assets that generate returns, not just preservation. Stocks, real estate, entrepreneurship, and select alternative investments have become the pathways to maintain and grow wealth. Idle cash is more than lost opportunity. It is risk itself, risk of falling behind, risk of being unprepared for emergencies, risk of losing generational security. The middle class must embrace financial literacy, informed decision-making, and a proactive mindset. Part 40, Lessons from History. History teaches us the dangers of complacency. Look back to hyperinflation periods, currency devaluations, or even the dot-com crash. Who relied solely on safe cash suffered disproportionately. Those who diversified, who took calculated risks, survived and often thrived. The lesson is simple: money must move. Money must work. To hoard is not security, it is stagnation. We are gathered today at a moment in history that demands awareness, courage, and immediate action. The choices we make with our money today will shape not only our personal futures, but the very stability of the middle class. Today, I want to talk about a reality that is simple yet often ignored. Idle cash is not safe. To sit on money without direction, without investment, is not prudence, it is slow destruction. The truth is uncomfortable but necessary. Inflation, market volatility, and unforeseen global shifts are quietly eroding purchasing power every single day. For families, for workers, for retirees, this erosion may not always be visible, but its impact is relentless. In 2026, the middle class can no longer rely on outdated strategies of saving money and being safe. The world has changed, the rules have changed, and if we do not adapt, our savings, our comfort, and our financial security will be quietly destroyed. Why do I say this? Because we are living in an era of economic acceleration, not just technological acceleration, but financial acceleration. Global capital flows faster than ever. Inflationary pressures are persistent, often subtle, and not always recognized by the average person. Monetary policy, historically predictable, has become complex and reactive. Interest rates, which once offered a safe return, now barely keep pace with inflation. Let me give you an example. If you have 100,000 sitting in a standard savings account yielding 5% interest per year, and inflation is 4%, your money is effectively losing 5% of its purchasing power annually. That is not just a number, it is a slow, invisible erosion. In 10 years, without any action, your 100,000 will buy what 71,000 buys today. Think about that. 10 years of hard work, years of disciplined saving, quietly eroded by inaction, and yet millions of Americans continue to let their money sit idle, thinking that keeping it safe is enough. I am here to tell you it is not. Safety without strategy is the path to slow destruction. The forces behind this destruction. To understand why idle cash is dangerous, we need to understand the forces at work in the global economy. There are 4 main drivers. Inflation is the silent thief. Inflation is the most obvious and most insidious threat. Unlike stock market crashes, which happen suddenly and are widely reported, inflation erodes purchasing power slowly, almost invisibly. Every grocery bill that rises, every rent payment that increases, every service that costs more than it did last year. These are small daily reminders that money left idle is losing value. Opportunity cost, the second threat is opportunity cost. Every dollar you hold in cash could have been working for you, investing in stocks, bonds, businesses, real estate, or other assets that generate returns. Money, unlike a dormant object, has potential energy. It can grow if deployed wisely. To let it sit idle is to surrender that potential. Global shifts in market volatility. The third factor is unpredictability in global markets. Economic crises, geopolitical tensions, and technological disruptions can change the rules of wealth accumulation overnight. Those who are nimble, diversified, and proactive will navigate these changes. Those who are idle will fall behind. Behavioral traps of complacency. The final threat is psychological. Humans are wired for comfort, for risk aversion, and for delayed thinking. I'll act tomorrow, or I'll wait until the market stabilizes, are common rationalizations. The truth is, time is rarely neutral when money is idle. It favors those who act decisively, not those who wait for perfect conditions. The middle class under pressure. The middle class has long been the backbone of economic stability. Historically, families saved, invested modestly, and relied on gradual wealth accumulation. But in 2026, the rules have shifted. Wages have stagnated in many regions. Costs of living, housing, healthcare, education have accelerated. Traditional safe havens like savings accounts and CDs now offer returns that barely keep up with inflation, leaving families vulnerable. The sad truth is this middle-class families, if relying on old financial strategies, are quietly losing wealth every year. Every month, idle cash loses a fraction of its value. Every year, that fraction compounds. Over decades, the effect is devastating. Consider the hypothetical scenario of a family saving $50,000 in cash over 20 years with an annual inflation rate of 4% and a bank interest rate of euro 5%. By the end of those 20 years, the purchasing power of that $50,000 would shrink to approximately $32,000. This is not fear-mongering, it is simple arithmetic. The choice we face, the middle class now faces a choice. It is a choice between complacency, keeping money idle in the belief that it is safe. This path ensures slow, almost imperceptible destruction over time. Action, embracing financial literacy, diversification, and calculated investment to preserve and grow wealth. The path of action requires courage, it requires knowledge, it requires willingness to step beyond comfort zones and learn the tools of wealth preservation. But the alternative, a passive, idle approach, is far more dangerous. A historical perspective. Let us learn from history. Consider past periods of economic upheaval. The 1970s inflation crisis, many Americans who relied solely on cash savings found their purchasing power decimated. Those who invested in real estate or stocks preserved and even grew wealth. Hyperinflation in global economies. Countries like Zimbabwe and Venezuela illustrate the catastrophic effects of holding idle cash in unstable environments. Money loses meaning when it sits still. The dot-com bubble, even in asset-rich markets. Those who diversified and understood risk survived. Those who were passive lost not only money but opportunities. The lesson is consistent. Money must work. Money must move. Stagnation is not safety. It is slow destruction. The urgency of 2026. Why 2026? Because the economic landscape is shifting faster than most realize. Global debt levels are at unprecedented highs, pressuring currencies and interest rates. Technological disruption is accelerating income inequality, creating winners and losers. Inflationary pressures, both visible and hidden, are persistent, quietly eroding wealth. This is not alarmist rhetoric, it is reality. And ignoring reality is costly, the call to action. So what can be done? What must be done? First, awareness, understand that idle cash is dangerous. Second, education, understand the tools available to make money work. Third, action, deploy capital wisely into diversified assets that generate returns, protect purchasing power, and reduce risk. For the middle class, this is more than a recommendation, it is a survival imperative. Financial complacency in 2026 is not neutral, it is a slow, unrelenting destruction of your hard-earned wealth. Part summary, idle cash loses value every year. Inflation, opportunity cost, market shifts, and behavioral complacency compound the problem. The middle class, if passive, faces slow destruction of wealth. Historical lessons show that money must work to preserve value. 2026 demands awareness, education, and action. The forces eroding idle cash in 2026. In 2026, the middle class faces an economic environment that is both unprecedented and unforgiving. To truly understand why idle cash is dangerous, we must examine the forces at work. Forces that combine global dynamics, domestic policies, and individual behavioral traps into a perfect storm for slow wealth erosion. 1. Inflation, the silent erosion. Most people think of inflation in simple terms. Prices go up, your money buys less. But the real danger is compound inflation, a gradual, almost invisible erosion that accelerates over time. Consider this: in the last decade, inflation in many developed countries has averaged 3–4% per year. On its own, that may not seem alarming, but when compounded over decades, it is devastating. Let's illustrate it. $10,000 in cash in 2016. Inflation averaged 5% per year. By 26, the purchasing power of that $10,000 has effectively declined to approximately $7,000. That's $3,000 vanished without a trace. This is not market risk. It is not speculation. It is a mathematical certainty of leaving money idle, and 2026 is different from the past. Global supply chain disruptions, energy volatility, and geopolitical tensions are keeping inflation persistent. Central banks can no longer rely on simple interest rate adjustments to curb it. The consequence is clear: cash parked in low-yield accounts is losing value faster than ever. 2. Opportunity cost: the price of inaction. There is a hidden cost to keeping money idle. Opportunity cost: every dollar sitting in a savings account under your mattress or even in a low-interest CD could have been working for you elsewhere. Imagine this. You have $50,000 in idle cash. You invest just 70% of it into a diversified portfolio with an average annual return of 6%. After 10 years, that $35,000 has grown to approximately $62,000, while the $15,000 idle cash has lost real value to inflation. The total loss in potential wealth is staggering. Many people underestimate this effect because they focus only on nominal numbers, the number on their bank statement, rather than real purchasing power. By ignoring opportunity cost, the middle class is quietly giving up tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. 3. Global economic shifts and currency risks. We are no longer living in a purely domestic economy. Every decision made by foreign governments, central banks, or multinational corporations can ripple through local markets. In 2026, global debt levels are historically high, increasing the risk of currency devaluation. Emerging markets are becoming both competitors and opportunities for capital flow. Political instability in major economies can create sudden shocks in commodity prices, interest rates, and asset valuations. Idle cash held domestically without consideration for these shifts is exposed to hidden depreciation. Even if your nominal balance grows slowly in a bank account, the real value relative to goods, services, or global assets may shrink dramatically. 4. Behavioral complacency: why people ignore the risk. Humans are wired to favor comfort, certainty, and routine. This explains why so many middle-class families let money sit idle. I'll wait for the market to stabilize. I don't understand investing. Cash is safe, better than losing it in stocks. These statements reflect cognitive bias more than financial wisdom. Behavioral economics shows that people consistently overestimate safety and inactivity and underestimate the risk of doing nothing. Inaction feels safe but is statistically risky. Over time, the risk compounds, creating what I call the slow destruction trap. 5. Case study: inflation vs. idle cash in real life. Let's make this concrete with a real-world scenario. Meet Sarah and John, a middle-class couple in their early 40s. They've saved $150 in cash for a house renovation and retirement. They leave it in a standard savings account earning 5% annual interest. Inflation averages 4% per year. Year 1, $150,000, real value $145,000, $500, $130,000, your time value, real value $110,000. Meanwhile, had they invested 70% in a balanced portfolio, even with modest 6% annual returns, a year-end portfolio grows to $196,000. Combined with remaining cash, total wealth $211,000. By doing nothing, Sarah and John lose over $100,000 in potential wealth in just a decade. This is the slow destruction effect, and in 2026, with inflation pressures high, this effect accelerates. 6. Actionable strategies to combat slow destruction. Understanding the risk is only the first step. The middle class must adopt strategies to preserve and grow wealth. Here are practical approaches: diversification across asset classes, cash for emergencies only, equities for growth, bonds for stability, real estate for income and appreciation. Consider alternative assets carefully, investing in inflation-resistant assets. Stocks historically outperform inflation over the long term. Real estate often appreciates alongside inflation. Commodities or treasury inflation, protected securities can hedge against currency devaluation. Continuous financial education: learn about risk as reward, understand compound interest and opportunity costs, stay aware of global trends and policy changes. Behavior discipline: avoid analysis paralysis. Automate investments. Rebalance portfolios regularly. 7. The psychological imperative: beyond numbers and charts, there is a psychological truth. Money must move to survive. Idle cash represents fear, hesitation, and comfort. Action represents courage, knowledge, and foresight. The slow destruction of wealth is not immediate. It is subtle, it is invisible, but it is relentless. And if the middle class does not act in 2026, the losses, both in real dollars and future opportunities, will be profound. Part 2 summary: Inflation and global pressures are eroding idle cash faster than ever. Opportunity cost makes inaction extremely costly over time. Global economic shifts introduce hidden risks for stagnant money. Behavioral complacency traps the middle class in financial inertia. Practical strategies, diversification, inflation, resistant assets, financial education are essential to fight the slow destruction. Fighting slow destruction, practical strategies for the middle class. By now, the picture should be clear. Idle cash in 2026 is dangerous. Inflation, opportunity costs, and global economic forces ensure that doing nothing is not neutral, it is destructive, but knowledge without action is useless. Today, I will outline how middle-class families can fight back, preserve wealth, and grow it intelligently. 1. Emergency cash, West working capital. First, let's separate cash for emergencies from idle cash. Emergency fund, keep 6 months of living expenses in a highly liquid, safe account. This money is for crises, medical emergencies, job loss, urgent home repairs. Working capital, any money beyond your emergency fund should not sit idle. This is the portion of your wealth that must be invested. Diversified and active. The mistake most people make is leaving all their cash safe in the bank. This is exactly what guarantees slow destruction. The smarter approach is to strike a balance between liquidity and growth. 2. Diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversification is the cornerstone of wealth preservation. In 2026, the world is too complex to rely on a single asset class. Consider this example of a diversified approach. Equities 45%. Historically, stocks provide the highest long-term growth. Focus on companies with strong fundamentals, sustainable earnings, and resilience to market shocks. Bonds and fixed income 20-30%. Bonds provide stability, regular income, and reduce portfolio volatility. Consider high-quality corporate bonds, municipal bonds, or inflation-protected treasury bonds. Real estate 15-20%. Real estate offers long-term appreciation and rental income. Even if markets fluctuate, property often rises in value over decades and serves as a hedge against inflation. Alternative assets 5-10%. Carefully consider commodities, precious metals, or emerging technologies. These assets can act as insurance against inflation and market disruption. The principle is simple. Diversification spreads risk while maximizing growth opportunities. Idle cash concentrates risk in the slowest growing asset, money itself. 3. Investing for inflation-adjusted growth 2026 is not 1990 and it is not 2000. Inflation is persistent and returns must outpace inflation to preserve purchasing power. $50,000 invested in a savings account earning 0.5% but loses you 5% annual purchasing power. $50,000 invested in a diversified stock bond portfolio earning 6% grows 2% above inflation. Even modest investing significantly outpaces idle cash. This is why time is the friend of active investing and the enemy of idle cash. 4. Dollar cost averaging combat volatility. Many fear investing because markets fluctuate, but volatility is not your enemy, it's your opportunity. Dollar cost averaging is a strategy where you invest a fixed amount at regular intervals regardless of market conditions. If prices fall, you buy more shares for the same money. If prices rise, your investment still grows proportionally. Over time, DCA reduces the impact of short-term market swings and ensures your money is consistently working. The alternative, waiting for perfect conditions, is a guaranteed path to idle cash destruction. 5. Real-life middle-class example fighting inflation. Consider Maria, a 35-year-old teacher in 2026. Savings at $80,000, emergency fund at $20,000, remaining $60,000 invested. $30,000 index funds, $15,000 in municipal bonds, a $10,000 in rental property down payment, $5,000 in gold. After 10 years with moderate 6% returns, Maria's working capital grows to $108,000, while her emergency fund preserves liquidity. Had she left all $80,000 idle in the bank at zero, if with 5% interest, inflation adjusted value would be used $60,000, a loss of $48,000 in potential wealth. This demonstrates that even conservative, diversified investing beats idle cash. 6. Mindset shift, money must work. The difference between survival and destruction is mindset. Money left idle is not neutral. Every dollar unused is a dollar surrendered to inflation and lost opportunity. Middle-class families must adopt these principles. Proactivity over complacency. Take control of your finances. Waiting for perfect timing is a luxury you cannot afford. Education over ignorance. Learn basic investing. Understand portfolio diversification and grasp inflation's impact. Action over inaction. Allocate cash to growth assets. Start small if necessary, but start now. Behavioral science shows that action reinforces confidence, and confidence compounds over time, just like money. 7. Leveraging technology for growth. In 2026, middle-class investors have unprecedented access to tools that previous generations lacked. Robo-advisor automatically diversify portfolios based on risk tolerance. Investment apps track performance, set goals, and invest with low fees. Education platforms learn financial literacy at home. Using these tools, you can put your money to work efficiently, reduce errors, and avoid the traps of idle cash. Technology democratizes wealth building. It is no longer reserved for the wealthy elite. 8, tax efficiency and wealth preservation. Wealth growth is not only about returns, it's about how much you keep after taxes. Strategies to consider: tax-advantaged accounts, 4-to-1s, IRAs, or equivalents. Long-term investments prefer capital gains taxed at lower rates. Charitable giving strategies can reduce tax liabilities while supporting causes. Even small improvements in tax efficiency can make a huge difference over decades. Idle cash doesn't just lose purchasing power, it also misses out on tax-optimized growth opportunities. The long-term perspective: the ultimate principle: think in decades, not months. Compounding is the most powerful force in wealth accumulation. Inflation works relentlessly over time, so must your investments. Patience, consistency, and discipline transform small actions today into financial security tomorrow. Idle cash may feel safe today, but in 10, 20 years it is slow destruction. Realize the middle class must act today to protect decades of hard work. Part 3 summary: separate emergency cash from working capital. Diversify across stocks, bonds, real estate, and alternative assets. Invest for inflation-adjusted growth, not nominal returns. Use dollar cost averaging to navigate market volatility. Shift your mindset: money must work. Action beats inaction. Leverage technology and tax strategies for efficient wealth building. Focus on long-term consistency, decades, not months. The psychology of money in 2026, overcoming fear, complacency, and inaction. So far, we've discussed the math, the economics, and the practical strategies. But even with knowledge, middle-class families often fail. Why? Because human psychology works against us. Idle cash isn't just dangerous financially, it's dangerous psychologically. Comfort, fear, and indecision are subtle thieves, quietly eroding wealth over time. To fight slow destruction, the middle class must master not just money, but themselves. 1. Fear. The enemy of growth. Fear is the most powerful emotion influencing financial decisions. Fear of market volatility, fear of losing principal, fear of making the wrong investment. Fear often leads to inaction, which is the exact opposite of what is needed. In 2026, with markets fluctuating and news cycles full of economic uncertainty, fear can paralyze even the most disciplined saver. Example: consider 2 siblings, Alex and Jordan. Alex keeps $100,000 in cash, worried about a stock market crash. Jordan invests $100,000 in a diversified portfolio despite market uncertainty. After 10 years, even accounting for market downturns, Jordan's portfolio has grown by 60%, while Alex's cash has lost 30% of its real purchasing power. Fear preserved nothing, it only delayed inevitable financial erosion. Lesson: fear is costly. Action, guided by knowledge and strategy, is wealth preserving. 2. Complacency, the silent thief. Complacency is the cousin of fear. It's the mindset that says, I'll wait for the right moment. My savings are fine for now. I don't need to worry about investing yet. Complacency is invisible, almost seductive. It feels safe, but time is working against idle money. Every year that cash sits unused is another year of slow destruction. Behavioral economists call this status quo bias, the tendency to prefer things to stay the same even when change is necessary. Strategy to overcome complacency: set automatic contributions to investment accounts, schedule quarterly financial reviews, track inflation, adjusted net worth to see real effects. Once middle-class families see the invisible erosion, complacency becomes untenable. Awareness alone drives action. 3. Procrastination. Tomorrow is the silent killer. Procrastination is subtle and devastating. Most people think, I'll start investing next month, next year, or after the bonus. But financial growth rewards time in the market, not time. In a few months of delay can have exponential consequences. Start $10,000 invested at age 30 at 6% annual growth of $57,000 at age 50. Oh, $10,000 invested at age 32 at same growth, you need $48,000 at age 50. 2 years of delay, $9,000 less wealth. That is the power of procrastination compounded by growth. Actionable tips start now. Small steps today compound into massive gains over time. For herd mentality, don't follow the crowd. Humans are social creatures. In finance, this leads to herd behavior. Buying assets because everyone else is buying, selling out of panic during market drops, chasing trends without understanding fundamentals. Herd mentality is expensive. It forces middle-class families into reactive, emotional decisions rather than strategic, deliberate ones. Example: the 2008 financial crisis showed that those who panicked and sold at the bottom locked in losses, while disciplined, informed investors who held diversified portfolios recovered and grew wealth. Strategy: focus on long-term fundamentals rather than short-term noise. Don't be reactive, be deliberate. 5. Emotional anchors in money. Many families tie emotions to money in ways that sabotage growth. Guilt about spending or investing, pride in saving every penny at the expense of growth, anxiety about market risks, These emotional anchors make cash feel safe, but in reality, they create financial stagnation. To fight slow destruction, you must separate emotions from decisions. Techniques: use automatic investing to remove emotional bias, regularly review performance, not daily fluctuations, treat investing as a mechanical process. Like watering a plant, consistency matters more than perfection. 6. The power of discipline. Discipline is the bridge between knowledge and action. It allows middle-class families to allocate funds consistently, resist the urge to hoard cash unnecessarily, rebalance portfolios periodically. Think in decades, not months. Discipline is learned. It is built habitually through budgeting and tracking expenses, setting clear financial goals, educating oneself continuously about investing, taxes, and inflation. Without discipline, even the best strategies fail. 7. Real life middle-class success story. Mindset matters. Let's consider Daniel and Priya, a couple in their 40s with $200,000 in cash in 2026. They educated themselves on investing, inflation, and diversification. They created a disciplined plan: 60% stocks, 20% bonds, 10% real estate, 10% alternatives. They automated investments monthly and ignored daily market noise. 10 years later, total portfolio grew to $400,000. Real purchasing power doubled, protecting them from inflation. Their confidence in financial decisions increased, reducing stress and improving family life. The key factor: mindset. They overcame fear, procrastination, and herd mentality. They acted deliberately, consistently, and courageously. The psychological imperative of 2026. In 2026, the stakes are higher than ever. Inflation is persistent. Markets are unpredictable. Global economic risks are elevated. Middle-class families cannot afford to let emotions govern money. Idle cash is not safety, it is silent erosion. The psychology of wealth demands courage, discipline to execute, awareness to see invisible erosion, education to make informed choices. Combine these, and the middle class can not only preserve wealth, but grow it in ways previous generations could only dream of. Part 4 summary. Fear, complacency, procrastination, and herd mentality are psychological traps that destroy wealth. Emotional attachment to idle cash creates false security. Discipline, education, and deliberate action are the antidotes. Mindset is the multiplier. The smarter, calmer, and more consistent your behavior, the greater your wealth preservation and growth. Real-world examples confirm that mindset often matters more than technical strategy alone. A practical action plan for middle-class wealth in 2026. Understanding the problem, idle cash erodes wealth, is essential, but knowing the solution requires a comprehensive plan. Here is a detailed roadmap designed for the middle class in 2026, combining financial strategy with disciplined mindset and behavioral safeguards. Step 1: to audit your current financial situation. Before making any changes, you must understand where you are. Conduct a thorough financial audit. List all cash holdings, savings accounts, checking accounts, cash at home. Assess debt, mortgages, credit cards, personal loans. Evaluate investments, stocks, bonds, real estate, retirement accounts. Calculate net worth, total assets minus total liabilities. Assess risk tolerance. Understand your comfort with market fluctuations and long-term growth. Purpose: awareness is the first defense against slow destruction. If you don't know where your money is or what it's doing, it can quietly lose value without your notice. Step 1: separate cash into 2 buckets. Emergency fund 3, 6 months of living expenses in a liquid safe account. Working capital: all money beyond your emergency fund, which should be invested for growth. Rule of thumb: the emergency fund is protection, not investment. Working capital is power. It fights inflation and grows wealth. Step 3: create a diversified investment plan. Diversification is essential in 2026. Here's a model allocation. Asset class suggested allocation. Purpose: stocks 40, 50% long-term growth, outpace inflation. Bonds 20, 30% stability. Regular income. Real estate 15, 20% inflation hedge. Rental income. Alternative assets 5, 10% diversification, protection against shocks. Example: the 100 do capital and a 45,000 diversified stock index funds, a 25,000 in bond estate, 20,000 in real estate with 10,000 alternatives. The goal: balance risk, growth, and inflation protection. Step 4: automate your investments. Behavioral psychology shows that consistent action beats sporadic effort. Automation reduces emotional mistakes. Set up monthly contributions to stock and bond portfolios. Automate deposits to retirement accounts or tax-advantaged accounts. Reinvest dividends and interest automatically. Automation ensures time in the market, not timing the market, which is the true path to long-term growth. Step 5: dollar cost averaging. Market volatility is inevitable. DCA is your weapon against fear. Invest a fixed amount regularly regardless of market conditions. Benefit from buying more shares when prices fall, fewer when prices rise. Reduces emotional panic and maximizes long-term growth. Even small monthly contributions compound dramatically over 10, 20 years. Step 6: monitor inflation and adjust accordingly. Idle cash loses value due to inflation. Periodically adjust your portfolio to preserve purchasing power. Compare returns against inflation-adjusted benchmarks. Consider Treasury inflation-protected securities or inflation-linked bonds. Rebalance portfolios to ensure growth outpaces inflation. Example, if inflation averages 4% in 2026 and your savings account earns 0.5%, you must adjust by moving at least 3-4% of capital into assets that grow above inflation. Step 7, tax efficiency and wealth protection. Smart investing isn't just about returns, it's about after-tax returns. Use 4-to-1 IRA or equivalent tax-advantaged accounts. Prefer long-term investments to reduce capital gains taxes. Explore municipal bonds for tax-free income. Consider charitable giving strategies for additional tax benefits. Even small tax savings compounded over years can save tens of thousands. Idle cash misses all of this. Step 80, build a generational wealth mindset. Wealth is not just for today, it's for the future. Educate children about money, investing, and inflation. Use life insurance, trust, or estate planning to protect wealth. Avoid leaving cash idle. Instead, create assets that generate income for future generations. Example, a family invests $50 in a balanced portfolio and teaches children the principles of investing. Over 20 years, that portfolio grows to over $160 in real purchasing power, transforming idle cash into generational wealth. Step 90, embrace technology and information. 2026 offers unprecedented tools. Robo-advisors for low-cost portfolio management. Apps to track net worth, spending, and growth. Online education to stay updated on financial trends and global risks. Technology allows middle-class families to level the playing field with the wealthy, making informed, automated, and strategic decisions easily. Step 100, review, rebalance, repeat. Wealth building is a continuous process. Quarterly review portfolio performance. Annually rebalance to maintain asset allocation. Adjust contributions as income grows. Stay informed about global economic conditions and inflation. Consistency over decades creates compound growth, the ultimate weapon against idle cash destruction. 11. The psychological anchor, discipline for action. All the steps above require discipline. Knowledge alone is insufficient. Fear will always appear. Market volatility will test patience. Herd mentality will tempt panic moves. Discipline and consistent action, however, will compound your advantage. The middle class that combines strategy with discipline will thrive in 2026 and beyond. Summary, your roadmap to victory against idle cash. Audit your finances and understand net worth. Separate emergency fund from working capital. Diversify across multiple asset classes. Automate contributions and reinvestments. Use dollar cost averaging to reduce volatility risk. Monitor inflation and adjust investments. Optimize for taxes and long-term wealth protection. Build a generational wealth mindset. Leverage technology and continuous education. Review, rebalance, and repeat consistently. Combine strategy with discipline and action. Follow this roadmap and idle cash will no longer destroy your wealth. Instead, your money will work for you, growing steadily, preserving purchasing power, and creating long-term financial future-proofing wealth. The middle class imperative for 2026 and beyond. We've traveled a long road together. We've examined the silent destruction caused by idle cash, analyzed the economic forces of 2026, studied practical strategies, and explored the psychology that either builds or erodes wealth. Now it's time to look forward. The challenge of 2026 is not just preserving wealth, it is anticipating change and positioning yourself for long-term growth. The world will not stand still. Inflation, technology, geopolitical shifts, and financial innovation will continue to reshape the rules of wealth. 1. Global trends that will affect wealth. Middle-class families must understand the trends shaping the next decade. Technological disruption. Automation, AI, and robotics are reshaping labor markets. Industries will rise and fall. Income streams will diversify. Investing in sectors benefiting from technology is critical. Global economic shifts. Emerging markets will grow faster than mature economies. Currency fluctuations will impact international purchasing power. Diversified global investments reduce risk and capture growth. Inflation and monetary policy. Inflation will persist in cycles, sometimes higher than historical norms. Central banks may respond unpredictably to debt crisis. Protecting cash from erosion requires constant monitoring and adjustment. Climate and resource risks. Climate change will impact agriculture, energy, and real estate. Investments in sustainable energy, resilient infrastructure, and adaptive industries offer opportunities. Implication, idle cash is exposed to these forces. Active, informed investment is the shield against uncertainty. 2. Future-proof investment principles. To thrive, middle-class families must adopt principles that transcend market cycles. Flexibility, be ready to adjust allocations as markets and trends change. Diversification, never rely on one asset sector or geography. Education, continuously learn about emerging industries, global markets, and financial innovation. Resilience, build portfolios that can survive shocks, recessions, inflation spikes, or geopolitical events. Example, families that invested in renewable energy, diversified tech, and global index funds in 2016 saw compounding benefits by 2026, while those holding idle cash saw erosion. 3. Generational wealth planning. Future-proofing isn't just about your lifetime, it's about generational security. Set up trusts, estate plans, and life insurance to protect wealth. Teach children financial literacy and investing discipline. Leverage compounding over decades, not just years. Key insight, the money that sits idle today will likely be gone tomorrow in purchasing power, but money that works and is invested intelligently becomes legacy wealth. 4. The psychological armor. Even with perfect strategy, the human mind is the battlefield. Fear and procrastination remain enemies. Herd mentality and short-term thinking threaten disciplined plans. Patience and consistency are your superpowers. A family that practices disciplined investing, revisits strategy annually, and ignores daily noise wins not by luck but by behavior. 5. Actionable future-proof steps for middle-class families in 2026. Invest beyond domestic borders, global ETFs, multinational companies, foreign real estate. Allocate for growth and resilience, tech, AI, healthcare, sustainable energy, and inflation-protected assets. Maintain liquidity, but minimize idle cash, emergency funds only. Automate contributions, remove emotional barriers to investing. Monitor macroeconomic trends. Anticipate inflation, interest rates, and global shocks. Educate your family. Financial literacy multiplies impact across generations. Rebalance annually. Adjust portfolio to align with long-term goals. Plan for legacy, trust, insurance, and teaching children smart money habits. 6. The final warning and opportunity. Idle cash is not neutral. In 2026, leaving money stagnant is slow destruction. Every day that passes is a day your wealth erodes invisibly. But there is hope. Action multiplies opportunity. Families who combine discipline, strategy, and psychological mastery will thrive despite inflation, market volatility, and global uncertainty. Your money can become a tool, a shield, and a legacy. It can preserve purchasing power, grow steadily, and create opportunities for the next generation. But only if it is actively working, never idle. 7. Your call to action. Middle-class families of 2026, remember these truths. Knowledge without action is worthless. Cash without growth is destruction. Discipline compounds over decades. The world will not wait. Start today. Allocate cash wisely. Diversify. Invest for growth. Protect against inflation. Educate yourself and your family. And above all, treat money as a tool, not a trophy. Inaction guarantees slow destruction. Action ensures prosperity, security, and the possibility of generational wealth. Conclusion, we are living in an era where the stakes have never been higher. Inflation, global shifts, and technological disruption mean that idle cash is silently eroding middle-class wealth. But there is power in awareness, strategy, and discipline. Families that act decisively, invest intelligently, and embrace long-term thinking can turn the tide. They can transform risk into opportunity. 2026 is the defining moment. Will you let idle cash destroy your hard-earned wealth, or will you take control and secure your financial future? The choice is yours, and the time is now. Idle cash is slow destruction. Action is your shield. Strategy is your weapon. Growth is your reward. Curity,